Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And my guest today is Casey Anton from Spark Business Consulting. And she's a profit first person, which means that she helps people institute the profit first program. And instead of me just bringing her on, we're going to bring her on and first ask her what is profit first and why you might want to be interested in it. So let's bring Casey on. Hey, Casey, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's a beautiful day up here in Vermont.
It's actually a pretty nice day here down in Boston. Thank you for having me on today. This is very exciting.
My pleasure. So let's start off with what is profit first?
I bet you get a different answer. I wonder if every time you ask this question. So, when you ask me that, the very first thing that comes to my mind is it's a cash management system for businesses, but you could also use it personally. You could probably use it for a lot of things, to be honest with you. But the first thing that I think of, it's a cash management system for businesses that instills permanent profitability. I think I made that up,
Okay.
although did I read it? I don't know. No, I made that up. Yeah, I mean, and it's and j let me just go a little bit further with that because I've been a profit first professional for, about 7 years now, so I have, implemented it in hundreds of businesses. It is truly transformative.
Yeah, everybody I know who uses profit first loves it. They get great results. And why is it they get great results?
So, I'm trying to think of what angle to come at this from. So, I think there's so many benefits to it, but I wanna say that I think the best one of the best benefits is that it immediately bubbles up to the surface what is going wrong or what you need to focus on in your business. So while I say I've implemented profit first in hundreds of businesses, and I have, there are 2 stories I have where it did not work for them. And both of those businesses are no longer with us. And that it is because of that reason. It's because when we implemented it and started working in it, and within a first few weeks, maybe a month or 2, we immediately knew where the leak was. And in the book, it'll talk about the bleed or the leak of where the money is literally falling out of your business, whether it's in profit, which probably means you might have a debt problem or the owner's taking too much distribution. If it's in taxes because you're not saving for it, if it's in operating expenses, it depends how deep you go with profit first, but it will immediately, as I said, it'll bubble up to the surface what the issue is. And you have, 2 choices. You either fix it or you put your head in the sand. And the owners that put their heads in the sand, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and they'll eventually be out of business, and usually with a lot of debt. So we have found that twice in the 6, 7 years I've been doing this. But honestly, I think that was a benefit that Profit First did that for them because without it, those businesses would have kept going because they weren't seeing the writing on the wall, and they were just plowing in more debt or more personal investment to kind of cover their sins without really knowing what was happening. So when you implement profit first, it immediately tells you you just know where you need to fix the efficiencies in your business, where you need to fix something. And then you fix that and then you'll find another thing to fix and you fix that. And pretty soon everything's looking pretty good. So then your focus can just really be on profit. Can I make more profit? Sure. How do I do that? Here we go. It gamifies cash management, it controls it, it puts guardrails up. I just can't say enough wonderful things about it, but really it has transformed every business that I have put it in, including my own.
Oh, so your specialty is restaurants. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about restaurants because they are probably the highest fail industries of them all. And there's a whole
Mhm.
bunch of reasons for that. And having spent 20 years in the food business, I can give you a bunch. But what is the biggest challenge that you believe a restaurant owner faces?
The biggest challenge. I mean, that's a tough question coming off a pandemic that nobody saw coming in the restaurant industry, one of the worst hit. But if I put that part aside right now, because I do feel like the restaurants that were set up were set up for profitability, set up for growth, survived it. So if I put that aside and then you ask me that question, what's the number one thing? I would say it's their business model. It's their business model Is it broken or it was never created in the first place? And
So
by business
when you say their
yeah.
business model, what do you mean by that?
So there's a whole section in my book about the business model because I think this is really important. But if you're thinking about going to start a business, Josh, right? So you're gonna go open a restaurant, right? So you kind of have an idea of what you're gonna sell. Well, maybe it's burritos, maybe it's cookies, who knows, right? You're gonna have an idea of what you're gonna sell. And then you're
Right.
gonna should have a really good idea of what it's gonna cost you to make that burrito or that cookie or cupcake, right? And then, so that's that's kind of your gross profit in a way, right? So you have your sale and then you have your cost of goods sold being the food product, food or beverage. And then what it's going to take you to make that, who you need in the kitchen, who you need in the front of the house with you, right? So you have that. So that's your labor. And then from beyond that, okay, what's my rent going to be? What are the utilities? Like right? You have an idea of what things are going to cost. I would hope before you start a business, especially a restaurant where there are so many moving parts to it, right? You need to know what your overhead's gonna be, your insurances, your labor, all the dining room supplies, like everything that you need. So that's your business model. You should know going into your business, okay, this is what I'm selling, and I should have a 30% food cost, let's say. That's kind of an industry average. Some run at 25, some can run at 34, who knows? But let's just say it's 30. Your payroll to be able to execute that should be about 30, an industry average. And then everything else below should all fall into certain boxes. Occupancy around 10% if you can do it. Marketing at 5, whatever it is. It's your business model, which in the end, after you pay all of the expenses that you believe it's going to take to run your business the best that it can be run, there should be profit left over. And if that's the case, it's usually called your business plan. Maybe it's a set of projections, but that's your business model. You had an idea of what you were going to sell, what it was going to take to sell it, and what your overhead is. And there should be profit left. So that's what I love about Profit First is if you came into your business with a set of projections and then put them in a drawer and never looked at them again and just started running that business like crazy, and you don't know what's going on, your books aren't done for a month to a month later, and so you're like, "Oh, I don't know what's happening." You're just gonna be this constant cycle of, like, chasing Saturday night every night. I need Saturday night where all the sales come in so that the deposits come in Monday, and I have all the money I could spend on all my bills, and then you chase Saturday night because you're not actually looking at your business model, you're just assuming that it worked because you wrote it down when you first started your business and then you put it away, but it's not actually what's happening. So if you take those projections and you kind of put them into a profit first mold, which is, hey, I thought I could make a 10% profit off these burritos. So then take 10%, take 10 cents on every dollar. I thought that I could run a 30% food cost. Great. Take 30 cents off every dollar. And you just implement that into your business in the profit first style, it'll transform it and you will know where you were off. Maybe you weren't. Maybe you were at a 45% food cost. You thought you were running 30. No wonder there's no bottom line, right? Like that just wiped out your entire bottom line. That's what I see. And we work with a lot of restaurants. I think right now we have about 65 in our division. We have a wait list because thankfully people have heard about us. They know that we speak restaurant, we can get in there. But the ones that we work with, that's the number one thing that I come into is that they're like, I have a 30% labor and my food cost is 30, but they're not proving that with the numbers. They're just thinking that that's what it is because that's what they thought it was going to be when they first opened. So getting into the business model and making sure it works is where Profit First really kicks in and helps.
So I'm a huge fan in every business I work with, in all the businesses I've owned in my life, I've required dashboards. Uh,
Mm, I love those.
do you use dashboards with your customers?
I do. We actually create a custom Spark you named after my company, Spark dashboard for our restaurants. I think literally it probably came out of trying to get their attention and trying to show them maybe 4 or 5 different reports that, "Oh, here's your P&L. Oh, but your balance sheet's really important. Oh, wait, here's your cash flow. Wait, let's just look at your food costs and what happened." You're never gonna get them because 'cause you're lucky if you get them for 3 seconds, right? Because they're so busy running all the time. So we create a dashboard which just highlighted the numbers that they really need to be looking at, which we love. So it's not only like, here's your bank balance. And if they're using Profit First, here's your bank balances. Here's what you really have. Here's your AP run. This is the bills that you need to pay. This is what you did for sales last night. Here's what you did last year. So yeah, we create a dashboard with the numbers that we feel, and it's customizable, but we kind of came up with a one size fits all that we think all the different restaurants we work with that they can use and in one on one screen or one sheet of paper know everything that they really need to know to run their business.
So the food business, or at least when I was in the food business, theft was a notorious thing. Is that still a problem in the restaurant world?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a problem in, I'd say, the much smaller, so certainly not in corporate restaurant world. That I think they've solved that for the most part. Well, if they have a great manager, and the ones that I go to definitely do. So if the management's top notch and keeps that in line, then you don't see that very often in corporate. The smaller, small restaurants, the ones that I really love working with, yes, you will find that because getting them to do an inventory, I mean, it's almost nearly impossible. You have to bribe them to do it, but that's the number one thing when I usually can finally get my small restaurants to do me a physical inventory of what's there. That's when that might bubble up to the surface for them. I wouldn't say it's rampant. It does happen, and we can definitely offer ways for them to catch that much sooner. And usually, it's something as simple as making sure you're doing that physical inventory and just having certain controls in place. It could be even be a visual thing in the walk-in.
Yeah, part of it is actually doing budget versus actual. I mean, if you expect a 30% food cost
Mm-hmm.
and you're not doing, I mean, one of the things I've said for years is if you go to France, what language do you speak? You speak French, right?
Yeah. Oh, you better. Yeah.
Or you try anyhow if you're like me. I'm not very
Exactly.
good at it. But if you're in business, what's the language of business? It's finance. And
Mhm.
if you're going to be a business owner, this is especially true with restaurant owners. If you're going to
Yes.
be a business owner, you better learn how to speak the basics of finance. And the real basics of finance, I think most small business owners miss, is the cash flow statement. So, can you talk about that for a few minutes?
I mean, I can, and, that's an uphill battle. I mean, I can't even get my most savvy business owners, restaurant owners, and in the other industries that we work in to look at a cash flow statement. So, yeah, I mean, those are kind of difficult to understand. So, I do not force that anymore. And I mean, I'll bring it in later on in the conversation if I think they're willing. But what I love about Profit First is that it's like a living, breathing budget for your business, right? And it also is a visual depiction of your cash flow. So when you have, with Profit First is based off of 5 main accounts. For Restaurant Profit First, we have more than that. So we have a meals tax account because we got to get rid of that right away. It's not your money. And we have a food and beverage account, and we have a labor account. But for basic profit first, you have the 5 main accounts, right? So you have the income account, so all the sales and money gets piled up. It's a big pile of money, big pile of cash is what I picture in the income account. And then you have your profit account, your owner's pay, your owner's taxes, and then your OpEx, known for operating expenses. So those 5 accounts. Now, for cash flow reasons, I love showing them this through Profit First because it's visual. So let's say on a Monday you have $10,000 piled up in that income account, and then you allocate based off the percentages for your business to the profit, to the owner's pay, the owner's taxes, and the OpEx. So that income becomes zero, and then the money flows through the other accounts. You visually see, okay, this is where my money is going. And if you don't have enough money in your OpEx account, well, guess what? You need to borrow from the other one. And now you get to make that decision. Am I gonna take it out of owner's pay? Am I gonna take it out of my taxes? Am I gonna get out of profit? Because without profit first, it's just coming out of profit. You just don't realize it because you don't see it. There's no visual to it. And then you can build on that some more. You can add other accounts to really watch that stream of cash flow using bank accounts, which is the bank balance accounting that's Mike talks about in the book. That's just very prevalent with, I mean, for my whole business, we work with almost 250 clients across about 7 different industries, and all of them do bank balance accounting. Every one of them logs into their bank account every day and wants to know how much money they have in there. So this is the visual depiction. So this is what I love. This is cash flow for the real business owner, because getting them to look at a statement of cash flows that QuickBooks might spit out, they're just not going to do it. They're going to crawl under the table. They're going to put their head in the sand. They're not going to do it. It's just too confusing for them to understand. Understandably, because it took me, and I'm an accountant, it took me years to figure out that report.
Well, I'm going to have to just push back a little bit here
Yeah,
because I think
please.
I actually think it is the crucial account. Now, in a restaurant, not so much, because you really don't have a lot of fluctuating inventory, or you shouldn't. and you don't have a big capital expense that you're spending. But I tell the story when I was in the food service business, the vending business, we were profitable and we were on a road to bankruptcy because I never realized that principal payments do not show up on the P&L.
Mhm.
And yeah, you sort of see your cash balance dwindling, but I also was having an embezzlement issue going on at the same time. So that never really showed up.
Ooh.
So by not knowing a cash flow statement, and I've seen this in manufacturing companies also, it tends to be more prevalent in capital intensive businesses because of the confusion around principal payments not being an expense, is that it's very possible to be growing yourself out of business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, it is, and so to speak to that anyway, you're right. As much as we say to all of our clients, here's your P&L, here's the story of the business. Hey, no balance sheet activity is happening over here, just so you know. And they're like, whatever that means. Okay. So what we do is usually when we spit out their P&L, we move it over to an Excel, and then you have your income, your expenses, blah blah blah. And at the bottom, like, okay, and here's the balance sheet activity minus owner's draws of distribution, minus you know any type of debt service, minus this, and then we just show them on the very bottom. It's usually 3 or 4 line items. Here is your like cash flow P&L, meaning this is what your business produced in cash, or more often, this is what your business lost in cash. And then we might, compare the balance sheet from the month prior so they can see the shift of, well, your cash accounts went down or this went down or whatever. So we do that as well. But just pulling up the statement of cash flows, I feel like for us anyway, and the clients that we have worked with, they're just not seeing it, so we just but the only report they seem to kinda tend to take to is the P&L, like, that for some reason makes sense to them,
Well,
right?
it
If
does. It's
that's the
easy. It's easy to
story,
understand. It's
it's
easy to
easy on
understand.
the eyes, easy to understand, so then we just bring them down to the end of it, and then we show them, "Oh, and here's all the balance sheet activity that's not on here." So they get that, but again, profit when you're using profit first, it's all in there because it's real money in, real money out, no matter where it goes on your financials,
Yeah,
right?
this is one of the brilliant things about Profit First is that it forces a business owner to look at their cash in the business.
Yeah.
The truth is, and I've been saying this for a zillion years, public companies care about profit. Private companies care about cash. Because what do all private companies do in December? If they're profitable, they try to kill their profits so they don't pay
Mhm.
taxes, which is about the dumbest thing in the world to do. And that's a different conversation we don't have time to get into now. But it really is a dumb thing to do. I actually want to switch topics for a second because
Okay.
this is something that I learned the hard way. And I don't know if you ever get involved in this, which is how many seats a restaurant needs for it to be profitable, depending on the management structure. Meaning
Hmm.
that if you're running a business where you don't have a chef-owned restaurant, there has to be a lot more seats than if you're running a restaurant that is chef-owned, because you have a lot more labor you have to pay for if you're an absentee owner. In other words, you're running this as a business, not as a job. And most
Mhm.
restaurants, frankly, smaller restaurants especially, are run as a job. They're not really run as a business.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that just completely goes back to your business model. I mean, Chipotle doesn't have a ton of seats, and it's definitely not a chef-owned restaurant,
And
but I
again,
think they produce.
that's a fast food restaurant.
Right,
And
yeah, that's
I'm
where
talking
my
about a
mind
sit
goes.
down. Yeah, I'm talking
But
about
you're
a sit down restaurant.
a sit-down restaurant that's not a chef-owned, someone who just wants to
Yeah. For
own a
example,
restaurant and be
right.
absentee.
My story is I used to own a catering company. We were
Mhm.
busy in the summer and slow in the winter. So I said, gee, I'm going to be a brilliant guy. And there was this, hotel in the area that wanted to have us take over the restaurant. It had 45 seats. I wasn't going in there to be the maitre d'. I wasn't going in there to be the chef. We had, a bunch of other stuff going on. So I put my catering people in there, and we never got to the volume where we could make any money because we just didn't have enough seats. In the restaurant business, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are slow, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday we're busy. And we could serve maybe, we end up serving 200 meals a week. And that was not nearly enough to make money with the staff we had. So what I figured was, is that if you're going to run a restaurant as an absentee, and I've seen this over and over with good restaurant operators, they tend to have 100 to 200 seats that they can
Hmm.
put people into. And if it's chef owned, you can make it work at 25 or 30 seats, depending on, the way you want it. You probably need 50 seats, in my opinion, to make it really work. But, I've seen restaurants that last for a long time with 25 and 30 seats. So as you're advising people going into the restaurant business, do you ever do that work, first of all?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, that's how I
Okay.
started this business 15 years ago was when I sold my restaurants in Boston, and then I just immediately got into consulting from them. It's all I really knew, so that's what I ended up doing. Um, to answer your question though, I mean, I hate to keep repeating myself. It just goes back to the business model. And as a matter of fact, I do have a section in my book where I talk about exactly this, which is interesting that you even bring it up. Because I mentioned like, would you rather own and run a 200-seat restaurant or a 40-seat restaurant? And for me, it'd be a 40-seat restaurant all day long. But my 40-seat restaurant, and I'm not a chef, is gonna have a $100 check average. Like, I'm gonna sell, like, it's gonna be very expensive 40-seat restaurant, but I'm gonna model it so that even at 20 seats, I'm break even, and at 40 seats, I'm making buku bucks, and it's gonna be easy and simple and so for me, I go through the model of my book about how I think a 40-seat restaurant. A 200-seat restaurant? That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of perishable food you gotta bring in. You don't know if you're gonna fill 20 seats, and then you're gonna have 180 empty seats. That's a billboard of out of business. So, for me, it's the business model is different. If you're gonna run a 40-seat restaurant and not be chef driven and have a low check average, then yeah, that's gonna be a struggle. And I would actually need to see the plan on paper to advise them to or against that. But I do like the smaller 40, 50, 60 seat restaurants. I just at a very high check average, like offer something unique that people want to come to all the time, not just a special occasion. So that's kind of a rare thing, but that's the model that I would want to have. If you're
So
going to go
Casey,
lesser, it's going to have to be a bigger restaurant.
I would say so. So
Yeah.
Casey, we're out of time. So
Ah,
can you
okay.
can you tell us about your book? And it's coming out this summer, isn't it?
It is. It's coming out June 27th. It is available for pre-order now. It's Profit First for restaurants. So it's a derivative of the original Profit First best-selling book, and this one for restaurants really took my experience of working in, owning, managing. I've worked in every single position in the restaurant, from dishwasher, valet, porter, butcher, all the way up to general manager and eventually owning. And I took the stories of me in all those positions combined with my love and knowledge of Profit First and accounting for so long, and I put them together to hopefully guide or any restaurateur. I mean, probably it's geared more toward the smaller restaurants, but really any restaurateur to walk through all the stories I tell about how it's not you don't have to struggle to make it in the restaurant industry. You can actually be profitable fairly simply by instilling this cash management system in a specific way for restaurants where everything is covered, keeps the guardrails up, makes sure your food cost is on, your labor is on. It just really keeps you in line and makes you love hospitality, because in the end, that's what restaurants are, right? It's about joy and hospitality, and I feel like a lot of that has left the industry, and my book is about bringing that back, but it does start with profit. So that's where it's at, and, I'm really proud of it. It's the first and probably only book I'll ever write, but, the more I read it, the more I really think it's gonna serve a lot of people. So it's Profit First for Restaurants, coming out in
Well,
June.
so how would people find you, Casey, I'm
So
sorry.
they can find me. My main website for my company that I've run for the last 15 years is sparkbusinessconsulting.com. They can also go to Casey Anton. That's Casey with a K, KASEYANTON .com as well. And that's where they can pre order the book.
Super. So I've got two things I'd like you to do. The
Got it.
first is I'd like you to go wherever you listen to this podcast and please give us an honest rating review. I've asked this for about 8 years now, and I'll continue asking it for as long as I do the podcast. It's really important. So if you're new to our podcast, welcome. And go to wherever you're listening to this and give us an honest rating review. And the second thing is for years I've been playing around with this thing I call the 4 boxes of financial independence, which would tell a business owner from any business, whether they're on the road to financial freedom from their business or not. And we've made this into a program we call the Financial Freedom Accelerator. So the first step is you find out where you are on the road to financial independence using what we call our 4 boxes of financial independence. And if you're like most private business owners, I mean about 98% of you, and you think your business is going to get you to financial independence by itself, I hate to give you some bad news. You're wrong. It won't. And once you figure out it's wrong, then it's time to have the strategy. Say, okay, what strategy do we need to put in place that will get you to financial independence? And that's what the Financial Freedom Accelerator is all about. We've discounted this program significantly. I used to charge $5,000 for this, but I finally found some software that makes it really fast and really quick, so we can get you in 30 days, have a whole plan done, including the strategy portion. We're charging $997 for that. I hope you want to learn a little bit more about it, and it's easy to learn more. You just go to www.sustainablebusiness.co/freedom. That's www.sustainablebusiness.co/freedom, and you get a chance to learn a little bit more about the Financial Freedom Accelerator, and you can have a conversation with me to find out if it's right with you or not. So this is Josh Patrick. We're with Casey Anton. You're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.